Hello and welcome back to the On the Slab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every Friday night. Why do we do this on a Friday night? Because Friday night is horror night. Tonight we are joined by a very talented and special guest all the way from the States, as usual, because that's where most actors come from. A man with over 200 acting credits on IMDb, with another 40 upcoming. A man's name appeared on a few shows that we've done in the past. This is Mr. Bill Oberst Jr. How are you, sir?
Hey, Greg, good. So tell me what I agree with you that Friday night is horror night. Why is that? Because since I was a kid, like Friday night is the night to watch the movies and stuff.
So, over here we have a channel called Channel 4.
Yeah.
But back in the late 90s, early 2000s, so obviously you could go to the video shop and rent as many movies as you wanted. But at 10 p.m. when the watershed ended over here on Friday night, you got a free horror movie. So they'd put on all the classics. So like I
Oh,
got to
nice.
see House, I got to see Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween. Got to see all the classics on that channel. So it's a nice little tribute that we put out to that.
It's nice. It's
Yeah,
over here. I'm old enough to remember that horror movies used to run on late night television. So, maybe 12 o'clock. So you'd have your buddies over and 11 or 12 o'clock, they'd run a couple of horror movies back to back. What we
nice.
most enjoyed doing was picking the movies apart because you'd have things like Funhouse, The Bride Wore Blood, all of the movies that like the plots are so implausible. They're just so much fun to watch. There's a TV movie in America called Gargoyles about these flying gargoyles. And one of the gargoyles rode a horse. Just fantastic stuff. You could sit there, with your buddies and like, that's ridiculous. Who would ever talk like that? Or that's not going to happen. But just enjoying the heck out of them too. I've
But
always enjoyed Friday night horror movies.
isn't that what movies are for, though? Watching them with friends and family and actually enjoying them. Doesn't matter if they're bad or not. Like
Yeah,
a lot of,
because horror movie fans are like a family, right? Like
yeah, oh
we
yeah.
can uh, we can watch a movie and we can enjoy it, but we can still say, "Oh, look, they did that or they did this," but we can still enjoy it. It's a very forgiving fan base. I'm a part of it, so I do the
It's
same thing.
it's definitely the closest knit fan base I would have said because like you'll see sci-fi Star Wars and Trek fans usually don't get on to an extent in terms of which one is better or things. They can't just accept that the two of them are around.
Yeah.
Action movies, you'll always be like, oh well, this was poor, this was not. But with horror fans, I wouldn't mind. I only said it on the last show as well. I seen a funny picture the other day, and it was like horror movie slashers are perfect when they're done smartly. Horror slasher movies are perfect when they're done silly.
Yeah.
Like there's no in between. You get one or the other, but they're both if they're done well, they're done well.
That's right. I think my theory about horror is that the reason that horror fans tend to be really cool, easy to get along with, and pretty much no drama is because we're all really comfortable with death. And most of society is not comfortable with the fact that we're going to die. And
At
that's
some
it.
stage, yeah.
That's it. No matter what you've done in life, it's gone, baby. You're dead, dead, dead. Horror fans know that, and we play with it all the time. And I think it's what makes horror fans good people.
I do like I hadn't noticed it because we don't have conventions over here in Ireland, but we travelled over to the UK last year to go to a horror con, and like the conversations that were going on all over the place was just mental. But
Yeah,
no, like you could say, "Oh well, I like this movie," and they'd be like, "Well, it was good." Sorry, excuse me, it was good, but this movie is better. But like, there's none of this. Oh, you like that movie? That's shit. Like
yeah. A
I'm,
lot of hugs at horror conventions. A lot of
yeah.
hugs. People coming up and saying, I just gotta hug you. It's a really nice family feeling for sure.
Yeah, like there was we had some great guests at that one for the Love of Horror last year. I got to meet Laura Rivera from Terrifier 2. Got to meet obviously you're getting to work. We'll touch on later with Art himself, and David Howard Thornton. But we got to meet John Jarrett, who was Mick from Wolf Creek,
Yeah.
and some of the guests over there were just mental. We met Billy Ritt at the party afterwards from Lost Boys. It
I
was crazy. Sorry, excuse me.
I was at Weekend of Horrors in Germany, and the booth next to me, and you'll know the actor's name, but I can't remember it because I forget. But he co-created with Romero the original Zombies, and he was the guy who was in the graveyard. Barbara, they're coming to get you.
Oh Jesus! Um, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. The
Anyway,
inf- the infamous
so
scene, and
yeah, so we went to dinner, and he's sitting there telling me over like ravioli about how he and Romero sat at a kitchen table and they created what we know as zombies today. Because the only thing they had to go on was like the Lugosi movie White Zombie and
great movie.
some zombie stories from the Haitian Islands. And they said, okay, what can we afford? And that's how zombies came to be created, was what these two young filmmakers thought. Well, we can't afford that, but we could afford this, we can do that. They just made up the rules at their kitchen table. So sitting there at the dinner table hearing it from him, I was like, this is why horror is so cool, because everybody is so friendly and you just hear these amazing stories about the stuff we take for granted, how it all came to be.
That's mental to say. Yeah, I sat down with one of the original makers of Night of the Living Dead, or Night of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and whatnot with Romero. And we have a thing to Romero at the end of this that we do, which you'll hear later on. Um, but like I've only ever been to one convention in my life, and that was it. Like I've never been to anything else, and I was just blown away. There was 7,500 people in the venue each day. It was mad.
Yeah.
But that's enough about conventions. I'm sure you get to go and do a good few anyway. Linked with some of the movies that you've been in.
Well, the weird thing is to see people walking around dressed as a character. There's a the character that is most cosplayed that I've done is Papa Corn from Circus of the Dead. And so I've been to conventions where there are people dressed, male and female, dressed as Circus of the Dead. One guy named Chris, he's a better Papa Corn than I am, really. I met him at Cult Classic in Texas, and he's doing all the mannerisms that I did from the movie. He's doing, the finger and the voice. And I'm like, you are a better Papa Corn than I was. Yeah, that's weird. I always wonder how like the Walking Dead people felt when they would go to conventions and see people walking around, in Germany with cowboy hats on, dressed as Rick and stuff like that. Pretty
That's
cool.
it's like that's commitment to the cause, and like some of the
Yeah.
cosplays that we seen over there that weekend was just off the charts.
Yeah.
And fair play to the people that put them on, and like build them. We seen two lads who made their own Predator suits from like they molded all the pieces and stuff. It was just ridiculous.
Have you ever gotten into doing special effects makeup or costumes or any of that stuff?
Oh no, I can't even draw a straight line, so
But
that
you
wouldn't
might be
be for
able to
me.
sculpt.
Nope,
No,
I don't have the patience for that.
that was
Um,
my first ambition was to be an FX makeup artist. That's why I asked, because a lot of people in the business also, fooled around with it when they were kids. I remember
uh,
being a teenager running latex in my mother's oven and
oh,
taking the Dick Smith makeup course, and I love monster makeup, and fell into acting instead. But I still enjoy it when I get to participate in designing one of my characters' makeups.
we've certainly had a few FX people on. Our very first guest was Nick Benson, whose special effects were in The Abyss, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, at the Blob, and things like that.
Yeah,
That was a very original guest.
I particularly admire the painters prosthetics. Used to be foam latex, and now it's silicone. The To give a dead thing, a non-living thing, the illusion of life. You have to build the colors up from the base so that you get the illusion that the color is emanating from the thing with tiny little layers of colors, much the same way that a really, really good undertaker used to paint a dead body to give the illusion of the flesh tones. It's a real art, man. I love watching the really good guys go through tiny little cycles of flecking paint onto a silicone appliance until finally skin tone starts to develop. And then you're like, this really, really looks like skin. It's amazing.
I mean, obviously the big names in terms of FX will be the likes of Tom Savini, Rick Baker, Greg Nicotero, and things like that. But
Yeah.
there are some really, really talented, like even indie FX people that we've had on. Um, but like we had um, Tatiana Bluchel who done the effects for David Howard Thornton in the main one, and they were ridiculous. Like they looked so good.
Yeah.
Uh,
And people all over the world. Like, it used to be that everything was centered in New York or LA in this country. And it's just not that way anymore now. People are everywhere. They're creating from everywhere.
it's great though, really. Now we're kind of unfortunate here. We don't get a lot of the indie stuff. It's getting better, but it's still tough. Now I'm lucky enough if I have a VPN that I can use to get terms of indie films. Um, but sure, look. How did you get started in film? Obviously, you said that you wanted to be FX, but how did you get started in acting?
By mistake, I started doing stage. I did stage professionally for 14 years, and that was my
Nice.
living. And I did a lot of one man shows, and I did my own, noses and appliances and historical characters and things like that. And then, completely by accident, I happened upon a uh, movie casting for Sherman project called Sherman's March about the American Civil War. He's a very famous general who I knew well from history. And I thought, I've got a beard and I could dye my hair red. Hmm. So I just did this really
Okay, why not?
homemade sort of video. I downloaded pictures of epaulets from online and taped them onto a blue coat that I used for Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. Anyway, I put the whole thing together and did a little demo and sent it in. And it was enough to get me. They said, "Can you come to Washington, D.C. and do this audition?" So I went to Washington, D.C. and did the audition. And they said, "Yeah, okay, you got the role." I had never done film before, ever. So I didn't know
Wait,
any of the terminology. I didn't know not to look at the camera. I knew nothing. And it was the lead. So it was a real experience. After that, I
wait.
thought I would do historical characters, but then I learned that people no longer make a living doing historical characters. So I tried play. I tried. My agent used to send me out for like soccer dad roles, and although I looked like the soccer dad, they would eat the team, right? And then I had a really nice casting director who put me on the right path. Who said, "Can I give you some advice?" I said, "Yeah, please." She said, "Go dark." I said, "How dark?" She said, "With your face, you can't go dark enough. The darker you go, the more you're going to work because the camera loves faces like yours doing evil things." And I said, "Okay." And so that's how I really, really, really started to work in film from then on.
I mean, in terms of horror, like you've seen a lot of really talented actors get their break in horror, and start from there and move up. Like Leo DiCaprio's that was in Critters 3. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's an Oscar winner. You've got Christian Bale was American Psycho. I know he was a bit older when he done that one, but like even Jennifer Aniston was in Leprechaun. Courtney Cox in Scream. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
there's a lot of really talented people that have come out of horror. And so I don't understand the stigma of once you go into horror, you're stuck there. Absolutely not. But something I've said a million times is if you're gonna make the money doing it, you might as well go to the well as much as you can. And if you enjoy horror films, why wouldn't you?
Well, that's true, and it's a visual medium, Greg. So as much as I would like to play, sometimes I would enjoy playing more benign characters. My face is what my face is, and the camera sees it the way it sees it. And so if I want to work and I want to enjoy doing my craft, that's where the work is for me. And and I love horror, so yeah, it's been a good match. I'm happy.
202 acting credits so far says that you're doing all right.
Yeah, and, one of the first ones was for one of these. I don't even remember the name of it. Some reality or something. I was a guy on a subway with anthrax,
Was it a thousand
and
ways to die?
they were like, I think I was. It was just like me turning around, and the caption underneath said, "This man is a terrorist." So that pretty much sums up my whole career. The terrorist, the rapist, the killer, the necrophiliac, the homicidal maniac, the misunderstood troubled psychopath,
The bad
on
boy,
and on and on and on.
the bad boy of horror.
Yeah. I like playing wounded people because wounded people, usually the people who do really bad things, are deeply wounded. It doesn't excuse what they do, but it
Yeah,
helps you understand where it comes from. And so I like to play the woundedness and play up the woundedness because that's what is interesting with a face like mine on camera. Like, I'm really sorry that I have to do this to you, but I'm going to do it, but I'm sorry at the same time. I like that mix.
it's going to happen. I don't like it, but it's going to happen.
Yes, and how I wish that I didn't have to kill you, but I do. Like, that's weird as for a victim. That would be weird because part of you almost wants to feel sorry for the person, and the other half is like, you're crazy. It's the way, and like, if you're in an abusive relationship with a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, it's that kind of feeling where like they're playing with you because part of you really still wants to like them, and another part is like, you are crazy.
I think as I mentioned earlier, Christian Bale in American Psycho, I think that's something he done very well. He played off that he wasn't exactly wounded, but you weren't meant to like him because he was just psychotic.
Yeah.
But then you get the likes of Anthony Perkins in Psycho, who, as everything breaks down in the movie, you start to feel like he's just fucked up,
Yes. Yes.
and like you're like, okay, he's doing this, but thing even going as far as like the Texas Chainsaw, obviously the original and the '03, you can see what the family are doing to him, and then, like it doesn't excuse what he's doing, but you feel there's some kind of problem there.
We do make our own monsters. I mean, in America, we have seen that over and over and over again by the way we treat groups of people, and then we wonder why members of that group will act out. It's because you treated them like shit, and you treated them as if they weren't people, and you treated them as if they weren't decent, and they did not deserve to be in the same room with you. What do you think is going to happen?
There's only so
Uh,
much you can push.
yeah, yeah. We create our own monsters all the time. So when I get to speak in schools, I always tell kids, look, I know it's fun to be cruel and to say sharp things. I think it's built into the human condition. We really enjoy putting each other down. It feels good, I'm superior, but I tell them be really really careful with that shit because cruelty is it's a very very potent poison, and you don't need much of it to scar a person beyond the point that they can return from it. So be really careful with your cruelty. Just dole it out in tiny little doses.
Well, do you know what? I'm gonna quote something from a movie from the franchise that you were in. That's some Mark Twain shit right there.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah, yeah. That's right.
uh, that that was Bill Moseley in Devil's Rejects. But obviously, we might as well jump straight into it. Then I know you. were in Tree from Hell, which didn't get a lot of love. Well, I don't know what it did over in the States, but it didn't get a lot of love over here, which is unfortunate because I quite enjoyed it. I don't think it needed to be made because I thought the other one ended perfectly, but I was happy enough that it got made. So how did you end up in that? Obviously, with acclaimed director Rob Zombie as well.
I had a cameo, and the way that Rob works, at least for this movie, was I got a call from my agent who said Rob Zombie would like you to be in Three from Hell, but
Nice.
everybody's working for scale. You know, Ronnie Howard and Bill, everybody's working for scale, and you don't get to know what the part is because he'll write it later for you. You just get to say yes or no. So it was very unusual. And so I said, yeah, of course, yeah, because you have no idea what he's going to do. And then you get to set, and there's like, oh, hey, there's Danny Trejo, and there's Ronnie walking around, and Clint, and yeah, it's it was fun to do, and it was really interesting for me to meet and talk to Rob and his wife. They're such wonderful, sweet people.
Good. It's good to hear. I've had my things about Rob Zombie's movies. There's only a couple of them that I actually like. The three of them being the Firefly trilogy. Um, and that's really about it. He's a very it's a Marmite director. For a lot of fans over here, anyway, you either love his movies or you really hate them. Um, Now I was lucky enough. I seen uh, Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses when I was younger, and I fell in love with them because of how different they were to other slashers. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to carry on with that trilogy. I watched a lot of the other ones, but I was like, okay, it's not for me. I think the hatred kind of started to come with Halloween. But I mean, he done what he done with it. Like he gave it a bash. But yeah, I was happy enough with Tree from Hell. I know. I think you played. Is it Tony Commando or Tony
Yeah,
Commando?
yeah. I worked with Bill Mosley's wife Lucinda actually on that, and we both got killed. But I felt really lucky that Lucinda's the one that got the blood in the face. There was a blood cannon on set, and I was like, "Who's going to get the blood cannon?" And I'm like, "Aha, it's you, Lucinda." Because I'm going to tell you, Greg, those blood cannons. It looks great on screen, but it gets in your eyes and it burns, and it's really uncomfortable. I mean, I
I'd
know that
say so.
sounds wussy to say, oh, it's uncomfortable, but I'll have scleras, full sclera contact lenses put in my eyes. I'll do all kinds of stuff that's really very uncomfortable and embarrassing. But something about the blood in the eyes, it really gets me. So, yeah, I never like to be shot in the face with blood. So it was all good.
Obviously, I was saying about that convention we went to. Bill Mosley's actually attending it this year, and I'm like, yeah,
He's a
top
good
man.
guy. He's a good actor. We did 3 movies together that year, Three from Hell. There's one of them we did. What was it end up calling? It was Handy Dandy. I think it was the. I think it was released as Handy Dandy Revenge, Devil's Revenge, or something. Anyway, it was about talking ventriloquist dummies who come to life,
Oh,
and so it was
creepy
like
as fuck, she.
me versus Bill Mosley, and we were both Masons, and we were like battling each other, like occult stuff, bringing the. Anyway, there was a piece at the end where this very indie film here. We're supposed to fall into a vortex. So they laid down green screen on the ground, put the camera over us, and we're laying on the green screen. And we're supposed, we're grappling because we're supposed to look like we're falling into the vortex.
Nice.
And so they wanted some screaming. And I was like, I said, Bill, I don't want to scream because I'll hurt your ear. Oh, you're not going to hurt my ear. He said, you go ahead, scream, man. Go for it. Go for it. So on the next take, I can scream really loud, Greg. Like since I
I,
was a kid, I can scream like a banshee, and you could probably hear it there. So I
nice.
cut loose like that, and Bill goes, "Jesus!" we didn't get to use that take, but I was like, I'm sorry, I told you I could scream really loud.
And I'd say he took it like a proper professional too.
Yeah, that's the stuff that indie movies is full of. Like you're doing a werewolf transformation scene, and you're shooting in Big Bear, California in January, doing pickup scenes from what they didn't get originally, and it's freezing. It's absolutely freezing, and they putting slime on you, and you're so hot on your rear end that you can smell the tail hairs singeing, and you're so cold on the front end that's away from the fire that the slime is freezing on you. And you look at the actress underneath you, and you both just start laughing. We both just started laughing because I was like, what are we doing with our lives? And then we
See,
got serious and did the take. But indie film is always a lot of fun like that.
see things like that I can't deal with. I can't deal with like my hands being sticky or anything. So,
Oh, stay out of this business. They will cover you with all kinds of shit.
I like even to the extent of when we go on holidays. Obviously, being ginger, I have to use sunblock, and I hate sunblock. I hate the feeling of it. It's horrible.
I have been slimed up so much, cold so much, wet, cold and wet. That's the worst. I did a commercial for Bitcoin where I was a Bond villain up on top of a roof, and they had water effects rain on us all the time. And I was in a wetsuit, which I learned doesn't actually keep you dry.
You got
It
to
just
pee in
traps
it.
the water in there. Cold and wet for the 2 days of shooting that. Woo, baby. But it looks really, really good once it comes out, and you forget about the pain once the movie comes out. That's the good thing.
Oh yeah, I mean like it is what it is, isn't it? You got to be professional and do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, as it says, over 200 acting credits so far tells me that you're doing something right.
Well,
Uh,
I don't say no much. Like anytime they say, Bill, would you do this? I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can do that, and they like that. People like to work with people who are easy to work with, no drama, show up, be early. Like early is on time. If it's 15 minutes before your call time and you're not there, you're late because
oh yeah,
now the
you have to
AD,
be ready.
yeah, now the AD is going to start worrying as you get closer to that 7 o'clock call time. If you're not there at quarter till, you're taking up the AD's time worrying. Should I call him? Should I call him? It's 10 till. He's not here. It's 5 till. So it's that kind of stuff in a business. If you have a reputation for showing up early, being good, doing your job, keeping your mouth shut, yeah, you get hired.
Nice, nice. That's great advice for any young actors listening.
And
Show
say
up,
it
do
for
your
cell
job,
phone.
and
Turn
shut
the
your
cell
mouth.
phone off. Don't silence the cell phone. Turn the bitch off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Because anybody who's older in the business, anybody who's over 40, is going to look at you when you're on your cell phone, and they're going to make a judgment about you. I know they shouldn't, but they're going to. So if you want to make a good impression on set, put the phone away.
That's again more good advice from a man that's he's only been hired a couple of hundred times. It's fine, lads.
Well,
But information in the ear, write it down, hang on to it.
yeah.
Um, I know, as I said, I touched on it earlier. You are coming up, or there's a movie due out soon, hopefully, with a former guest, Mike Pickle, in the Dead Place, and I touched on you got to work with Art himself. The cast for the Dead Place looks unbelievable.
It is good, Cass. And I did the voice of the entity, the evil entity who's trying to convince the kid to do these things. I really enjoy voice acting. Those were good sessions with Michael because he wanted voice acting's not it's not as easy as it sounds. You don't just say this stuff because he wanted nuance. He wanted my character to sometimes sound almost seductive and then other times outright evil. Yeah, I enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it now. He hadn't even started filming when we spoke last year. Um, but he's a really good guy. But I said at the time, I'll I've changed my view on it just a little bit now because he's been a bit quieter as of late. But I said at the time that's the hottest prospect in indie horror, obviously coming off Terrifier 2. So to get someone like David Howard Thornton is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
What was it like working with him, or did you get to work with him?
it was great. Yeah, and we've got another one coming up, hopefully this fall. So yeah,
The two of yous?
yeah. No,
Oh, I was going to say, um,
I'm not
yeah,
allowed.
we won't say
Rarely
anything.
on my level. Usually you can talk about everything, but sometimes there are ones that say, well, you go, it's a non-disclosure agreement kind of a thing.
That's fine. We don't want to get you in trouble. So,
Mhm.
um, but like, what has been some of your favorite movies to film?
The most difficult ones, and I can't believe I say that, but it's true. Like there's a movie called Dis. It's an art house film. It was shot in Mexico. DIS. It's one of my favorite projects. It's weird as shit,
Nice.
and it was really really hard to film. We were in Mexico, remote locations. One afternoon, we were going 7 miles up a mountain with the camera strapped to burros. I mean, really difficult. We spent on top of that mountain one of the coldest nights and the wettest nights I've ever spent in my life. Anyways, it was really, really hard to film, really uncomfortable the whole time. But the result is a film that's so strange and so weird that it really messes with your head. And I like that. There's another art house project called Coyote that we filmed in a heat wave in St. Louis. It was the hottest that St. Louis had been in over 100 years. So we were literally in heat wave delirium while we were filming it, and you can see it. And it makes
Nice.
the movie weird. Like the director, Trevor Yinger, when he got the final cut, he wrote me an email and he said, I'm really depressed. I cut it and I've just watched it. Nobody's going to watch this movie. I said, why not? He said, because watching this movie makes you feel that you have a mental illness. And I said, Trevor, that's the stuff. You know, that's what
That's
people
what you
want.
want.
Like, yeah. And it was. I said the movie did good. So those are the films that I really enjoy doing are the ones that were difficult and challenging. The easy ones, they don't amount to much. It's got to be
Yeah.
hard, or it's not going to be worth it.
I mean, like I've spoke to a lot of directors and actors and stuff. Have you got a certain people that you seem to work with quite regularly?
Yeah, there's a director named Mark Savage that I've done three with, and I'm looking forward to doing more. I love him. He's a cult director. Trevor, who did Coyote, I've done a couple with. Adrian Corona, who did this, I've done two with, and looking forward to doing another. I like to work with people who are eccentric. It's kind of the way it shakes out. And I like to work with people who want to work with me. Like,
Good.
there's a difference between being hired as a part of a cast and somebody saying, Bill, I wrote this with you in mind. I think you can bring something to it. Would you give me a read on it? And then you do, and they're back with you, and you're back because you feel like you're collaborating. On the bigger stuff, when you just get hired just to be on, you come in, you do your thing, and you leave, but there's no connection. The exception to that was Criminal Minds, because the
Oh.
director of that, Matthew Gray Gubler, he was a bona fide horror fan, and that's why he had horror fans, horror actors, me, Adrienne Barbeau, Tobin Bell in that episode. That was a big budget thing that was really fun. But usually they tend to be the ones where you don't have
So
the emotional connection.
I said to my missus, she loves all those shows, and I says I'm doing an interview with someone that was in Criminal. Who was it? Who was it? I was like, I don't know. I says I don't watch the show, so it's just one episode that we found. But like you got to work with another horror legend in Adrian Barbeau,
Yeah, Adrian's
obviously.
great. I had barbed wire around Adrian's neck. It was plastic, but still, it hurts. It was pushing in. And she's the only woman I've ever worked with who I had barbed wire around her neck. Who, when we did a take, and they said, Adrian, is there anything you'd like different? And she said, tighter. I won't be able to pull it tighter. I was like, oh, yeah, my
Let's do it.
woman. She's a
I
great
mean,
actress. Yeah, really, really,
Um,
really wonderful to work with.
you'd
But see
have to
that
know that.
that character is an example of horror love because the makeup artist on it was Christopher Allen Nelson. He worked with Tarantino on all the Kill Bills. He did all of that. He's an
Nice,
actor too. He played the groom in Kill Bill. So he loves Lon Chaney, the silent film actor, like I do.
nice.
So I got in the chair and he said, I want to make this character a tribute to Lon Chaney. So we tried to create a makeup that would make him malicious, but also lovable and kind of sad.
I mean, I know we spoke off camera, but like even there, the pin that's on your jacket there,
The
um,
Wolfman,
yeah,
the Chaney
absolutely.
Wolfman, which by makeup special effects, it's rudimentary to us. But Chaney's Wolfman had a lot of heart. And
Oh
I
yeah,
like heart. I'm partial to heart.
you need a bit of it though. Like I know certain horror movies don't depict it too well, but like if you look at it, Michael Myers had a small bit of it. Freddy Krueger had some. Jason had some.
Yep.
Uh, Ghostface didn't really, but obviously they were played by different people. But there's so many characters. Even Leatherface had it at times. Um, but like it is important to do to show some kind of humanity in evil.
Yeah, because the monsters are us. Really, Greg. That's what I think. Like the monsters are us, and we got to be able to see ourselves in the monsters.
Absolutely. And then obviously, as we said beforehand, I says you've a lot of upcoming projects. Is there anything you'd like to promote?
Yeah, Circus of the Dead 2
Oh
is going to
yeah,
be made. Yeah, going to be made later this year, according to Billy Pond, the director. He wants me to do Papa Corn again. I hate that character. I hate playing him because I love playing him. And what I mean is, the thing that scares me most is that life might actually have no meaning and it might all just be random chaos. That's an evil thought to me. I don't believe it. But anytime I have to play a character who believes it, it messes with my head. And Papa Corn believes it. So it bothers me that I so easily slip into his skin. I don't like that part of myself. So when Billy asked me to do Papa Corn again, I was like, it messes with my head to play this, but you're my friend and I want to do it for you. And so I'm going to do it, but it still messes with my head. So yeah, that's one.
I don't,
And then I got,
I don't like it, but I'm going to do it.
oh, I hadn't thought about that. You're right. That's exactly right. Then I got one with Mark Savage, the former Australian cult director, now Los Angeles cult director, which is called Killcraft. And it's about a teenage girl whose father dies and she didn't know what he did for a living. Turns out he's a hitman. So she keeps the family business going.
Nice.
And I play this weird character who's sent to take her out, and his name is Poe. And he's sort of a, hunched over, strange looking creature like this. He's got a great scene digging up a grave, just all kinds of horror homages in that. And so I'm looking forward to Killcraft coming out too.
Nice, nice. Obviously, we've already touched on the Dead Place as well. That's it's going to
Yeah.
be electric when it comes out. No doubt we might see yourself and maybe Mike back if he's not busy off the scales.
Oh, there's a piece that I shot in Hungary too called Stranger in the Woods. It's very European in that it's not a lot of blood and gore. It's more psychological. Um,
Is that
yeah.
is that one out? Is it?
What's that?
Is that one out?
Who
Is Stranger in the Woods out?
is it? Elk?
Yeah,
Who's I'm
it is.
not understanding the last word.
Like it's
Oh,
out.
is it
It's
out?
out to
Yeah.
watch as well. Yeah.
No, no, it's still at festivals. It's at Chicago Horror Film Festival next week. We got
Oh,
nominated for best feature, best actor, and best psychopath. So, yeah, it's It's an interesting little movie. That's my favorite. Is I like to make weird little movies.
I seen someone said they watched that already. Now they might have watched it at a festival.
Maybe
Um, but yeah, I seen someone put it up and it got some good reviews from them anyway. So I was like, oh, it's the one with
it's
the house with the bad guy or what looks to be the bad guy standing in front of it.
yeah, yeah.
This one,
I don't think so. This one's called A Stranger in the Woods. Oh, that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm looking. I normally take the person's recommendation and I'll go with that. So whenever I get a chance to watch that, I'll certainly get onto it.
But it's not
Um,
gory.
it's
It's
all right. It
yeah,
doesn't have to
yeah,
be.
yeah,
Um, I'm for me, I like slashers and whatnot. I'm a big creature feature person. So the gore doesn't necessarily bother me. It doesn't have to be as gory as hell.
yeah,
Like my favorite horror is Nightmare on Elm Street.
yeah. The
Not over,
original.
not yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
not overly gory. Obviously it has that blood scene, but not
If you
danger
can hear
to add
me,
it.
you're
Like
frozen. Oh, there you
I
are.
was like,
You
oh,
aren't
where would
frozen.
you go from there? Like it doesn't have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know where that cut out. So, I was saying like Nightmare on Elm Street isn't overly gory, um, but for me, like in terms of creature features, they don't have to be gory. Dog Soldiers and Jaws, things like that, aren't overly gory. So, that's what I'm kind of into. So, like psychological thrillers do me quite well as well.
And Nightmare came from a real place, from a real story, because he had a friend who had come back from the Korean War, and he kept saying, "Don't let me go to sleep. Don't let me go to sleep. I'm going to die. Don't let me go to sleep." And his parents gave him a sedative to help him sleep, and he died.
Yeah, he had a heart attack or something, didn't he?
And yeah, so that's the germ of it. The stuff that comes from real life is always better than the stuff that comes from a corporation. People
Absolutely.
sitting around a corporation saying, "We own this why don't we reboot it again?" I know why they do it, for money, but come on, guys.
Yeah, we're running out of ideas. So what do we do? We'll reboot stuff.
Yeah, but
I
so
mean,
there's plenty of ideas all over the world, but nobody will give them money unless it's something people already know. It's
yeah.
weird. It's like you can't get big money for a project unless it's something that's already been done.
Like I mean, when you look at Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, there's a reason. Like the house that Freddy built was rode over the door at New Line Cinema because it pretty much saved them, and look what they've gone on to do since then.
Yeah,
So sometimes you have to take your chances,
right,
and like there's the easiest one to look at that recently is Terrifier 2.
yeah,
350 grand budget and it boxed 50 million quid.
right, right.
Do you know what I mean? Take your chances. Like,
Yeah,
what's the
that's right.
worst that can happen?
That's exactly right.
Bill, I don't want to keep you all night. I'm conscious of the time as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Um, and we'd absolutely love to have you back at some stage.
Hey, thank
Um,
you.
if you're up for it, we'll actually absolutely have you back on.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, absolutely. As I said, there was a few people that floated your name to me, and I said, I know the name, never quite put the face to it. And then I was watching. I only rewatched the Firefly trilogy, and I was like, oh look, there he is.
Yeah.
I
Well,
was like,
I'm glad to be with you, and I'm going to tell you that if you were on a horror set covered in slime, you'd probably get over your slime phobia.
I see. It's not really a phobia. I just don't like it. I just don't like being sticky. Like to a
You might start liking it.
maybe
You might
enough.
be
Maybe enough to keep me there.
Yeah, it might become like a fetish, like you always want to be covered in sticky blood.
Probably not. I'm gonna say no to that one, but uh,
Thank you
like
for
some
letting me be with you. Thanks, man.
absolutely, I appreciate your time coming on. And I appreciate that absolute stellar pin that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Um,
And thank you for what you do.
absolutely. And as I says, welcome back absolutely anytime.
Thanks, man.
Um, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this the way I finish every single Friday night. In the words of the great George A. Romero, ladies and gentlemen, stay scared.
Woo!